She was only 6, but her wish was big. To see her daddy smile again. To see someone fill the empty chair at dinner. To watch a woman walk hand in hand with her father. And maybe braid her hair too. Melinda didn't want toys or ice cream or more cartoons. She wanted a mother. Or rather, she wanted Stella, her sweet teacher with the voice of sunlight and the eyes of kindness. But there was just one problem. Her daddy was broken. Quiet, gentle, but broken. And Stella. She had locked her heart 6 months ago. And thrown away the key. But little Melinda had a plan. And sometimes when a child believes in love, miracles follow. Anthony Fisherman used to laugh often. Before the hospital nights. Before the goodbye kisses. Before cancer took away the woman he thought he'd grow old with. 3 years later, the world looked the same. But his heart didn't beat the same way. He taught history at the university in Atlanta, wore the same tweed jackets, and told the same stories of empires and wars. But his favorite story, that one stopped being told the day his wife passed. Now his world was quiet, predictable, except for the bursts of sunlight that came home with Melinda, his daughter. She reminded him of his wife, in both the beauty and the stubbornness. What Anthony didn't know was that Melinda had been dreaming and scheming, because in her heart, something had sparked the day she saw her daddy smile, really smile, at her kindergarten teacher, Miss Thompson. Stella Thompson hadn't planned on teaching again. After her fiancé walked out, after 4 years, 1 wedding dress, and a house deposit, she had crumbled like autumn leaves. But life had strange ways of healing people. Teaching wasn't just a job. It became her rescue boat. And the curly-haired girl in seat 7A, her daily dose of joy. Melinda had a laugh that could fix hearts. She also had a question she asked every Friday like clockwork. Miss Thompson, do you believe in love at second sight? Stella always laughed it off. Until one parent-teacher meeting, when she saw the man with the same curls and the same eyes. Anthony Fisherman, timid smile, keen voice, wore glasses that slid down his nose when he got nervous. He thanked her for her work. He complimented her patience. He didn't flirt, didn't linger, didn't even realize he'd stolen Stella's breath for 3 seconds. Melinda noticed. Melinda always noticed. One evening, Melinda stood in the kitchen, scribbling something with her crayons. Anthony was cooking pasta, his specialty, mostly because it was all he knew how to cook. "What are you drawing, sunshine?" he asked. "Our wedding," Melinda said without flinching. Anthony dropped the spoon. "Your what?" "Yours and Miss Thompson's," she beamed. "I'll be the flower girl." He chuckled nervously. "Sweetheart, Miss Thompson is your teacher." "We don't really." Melinda pouted. "But you smiled at her." "Real smile. Like you used to smile at Mommy." Anthony froze. The next Monday, Melinda brought cookies. 2 sets. One for her classmates, and a special box for Stella. Inside the box, cookies, a thank you note, and a little drawing. It showed 3 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. One said Dad, the other me, and the last, Stella Red Heart. Stella stared at it for a long time. She laughed softly, then teared up without warning. Was it just a child's wish? Or was something inside her breaking loose, something she thought was locked away forever. That night, Stella stayed longer in the classroom, just sitting, thinking, holding the drawing like a love letter from the universe. The week after, Anthony showed up early for pickup. It wasn't his usual day, but he said he had a faculty meeting nearby. Stella smiled, the kind of smile that reached her eyes. For a moment, their hands brushed when she passed Melinda's backpack. And in that second, a tiny spark ignited between two very tired hearts. But love never comes without a storm. One morning, Anthony received a letter from the school board. Stella had been offered a position abroad, a scholarship program for underprivileged children in Italy. A dream she'd applied for before she met Melinda. She hadn't told anyone, not even Melinda. That same day, Stella found a note in Melinda's backpack. It wasn't from Anthony. It was from Melinda. It said, "Please don't go far away. My daddy won't say it, but he likes you. He saw it. And I love you too. We're almost a family. Don't fly away from us. Love, Melinda." Stella sat in her car for an hour, holding that note, sobbing. Meanwhile, Anthony stared at the Italy program email. He hadn't even known Stella had dreams like that. He hadn't thought. He hadn't allowed himself to think. Because love after grief feels like betrayal. And Stella, she deserved freedom. Not a man with shadows. Not a child with wounds. He told himself to let her go. But Melinda wasn't done hoping. Friday came. It was the last day before Stella's decision was due. Melinda was quiet all morning. She clutched something in her little hands. At the end of class, as Stella helped the kids put on their jackets, Melinda walked over and handed her a tiny pink box. Inside was a ring. Plastic. From a toy set. But next to it, a note. "Even if it's pretend. Would you marry my daddy for just one day?" Tears welled up in Stella's eyes. But before she could say a word, Anthony walked in, breathless. "Miss Thompson," he said, his voice shaking, "can we talk?" And then the bell rang. A little girl with a giant heart. A father too afraid to love again. And a teacher about to leave forever. Melinda's wish brought them close. But now, one decision could tear them apart. Anthony stood in the doorway, clutching a bouquet of forget-me-nots, the same flowers he had once brought to his late wife on their first date. His eyes flickered between Stella and the little ring box in her hand. I didn't know she was going to do that," he stammered. Stella smiled softly, still holding back tears. "She believes in fairy tales." Anthony looked at her. This time really looked. Not as his daughter's teacher, but as the woman who had somehow slipped into his heart without warning. "I don't know how to say this," he began, his voice cracking. "But I don't want you to go. Not just for Melinda. For me too." Stella hesitated. "Anthony. That opportunity in Italy. It was my dream. I know. And I'd never ask you to give it up. But if you do go, just know I'll regret not telling you that you brought color back into my world." Stella looked down at the plastic ring. "How do you move on from something you thought would destroy you?" she whispered. "You don't," Anthony replied. "You let someone help you carry the weight. And then..." For the first time in 3 years, Anthony took a risk. He leaned in and kissed her. gentle, trembling, unsure but real. And in that moment, it wasn't about Melinda's plan or destiny. It was two broken hearts choosing to believe again. But the next day, Stella was gone. She'd left a note for Melinda in her cubby. Sweet Melinda, fairy tales are beautiful, but sometimes the hero has to leave so the story can grow. Love you, and your daddy, but I also need to learn who I am again. I'll be back if the story lets me. Yours always, Miss Thompson. Melinda cried for the first time in months. Anthony held her through the night. Neither of them said a word. But something changed. Anthony started smiling more. Melinda danced again in the living room. Life continued. Gentler, wiser, with one empty chair. 9 months later, Anthony was reading Melinda a bedtime story when she asked, "Do you think she forgot us?" He paused. "No, sunshine. I think sometimes love takes the long way home." That same night, a letter arrived. From Italy. Addressed to Miss Melinda Fisherman. Inside, a drawing. 3 stick figures again. Under a Tuscan sky. Me, you, and your dad. Someday. And a return flight date. Anthony didn't say a word. He just smiled. It was a warm Sunday afternoon when Stella knocked on the door. She looked different. Sun-kissed, calmer, radiant. Melinda opened it and screamed with joy. Anthony came to the door, eyes wide. "I thought dreams only came true in children's drawings," he said. Stella took his hand. "Turns out they come true in Italy too." 1 year later, Melinda walked down the aisle, flower crown and all, at a tiny backyard wedding. Anthony wore his old tweed jacket. Stella wore a simple white dress. And as they said, "I do," Melinda whispered to herself, "I told you God listens to kids." Sometimes when the world breaks you, it's love, quiet, patient, unexpected, that puts you back together again.